Did you see my bag? Did you see my bag? I don't know the lyrics, but I love that song. Hello everyone, my name is Adina from plantsbutbetter, and today we are back with a care guide. We are discussing this beautiful Monstera Adansonii, which is super easy care. It's very low maintenance. It could very much go under medium light as well. But yeah, let's discuss on segments, so that should be better. Fun fact about this plant. This was the first plant that I actually tried to do tests on it. Well, doesn't make any sense, but when we first started filming, this was the first plant that we did a care guide. Maybe I still have some footage, or maybe you're not interested. Let's move on. Let's move on. Hello plant parents, and welcome to one of the most anticipated video about Monstera. Oh my god. Mic drop. For the care meter, I give this plant a 9 out of 10. It's one of the easiest plants out there, and I pretty much recommend it for every new plant parent because it will not give you trouble. Okay, let's talk about light. As it's the case with most plants, this one loves bright indirect light. And if you don't have that in your home, you can help it with grow lights. When I say bright indirect light, I don't mean direct sunlight. Keep it away from sun rays because it could cause some burning on the leaves. It can also tolerate medium light, but please be aware to water it less frequently. And if you're not sure that you have medium or low light, please help it with grow lights. Help any plant in your collection with grow lights. It will do wonders and it will help you keep your plants happy long term. Okay, let's move on to watering. Once a week during growing season it's great, or once every 10 days. When it's hot outside, you can water it when the substrate is almost dry. And during winter time, I would stretch that period to maybe 14 days, maybe even longer, depending on how cold or how warm your home is. If you overwater your plant, it will show signs on the leaves and on the stems. They will get mushy. They will first start to yellow and then they will get mushy. If you see that happening in your plant, your chances for root rot are very high. If you underwater this plant, surprise, surprise, you will also see yellowing leaves, like this one right here. Before I prepared this plant for this video, it had a yellow leaf because I'm terrified of root rot, and I underwater my plant in most cases. I used to be an overwaterer. Yeah. You can pronounce that word for me, and now I'm on the other extreme. So, best advice is to always check the soil before you water your plant. Also, this plant doesn't mind underwatering as much as overwatering, so if you forget to water it once, it's no biggie, but please don't do it often. I mean, you want to protect your plant as much as you can. Let's move on to temperature. Average, like something around 18 to 26 degrees Celsius is great. I wouldn't go lower than 15 degrees Celsius because this is a tropical plant and it could be adaptable to some extent, but lower temperature could cause damage on the leaves, and since it's a tropical plant, I would go a bit higher just to be sure that the plant is happy. Let's move on to humidity. High humidity is great for this plant. It will encourage aerial roots, and aerial roots are great for propagation. We will talk about that in just a bit. However, this plant is super adaptable and it could grow in medium humidity as well, like something around, well, not quite 40, but 50% is good. I would definitely go higher if you can, but if you don't have the facilities, 50 is great. Also, don't forget that higher humidity lowers your chances for spider mites in plants. Just a tip, just remember. Let's talk about fertilizer. I feed my plant once a month during growing season. Sometimes I forget to do it even once a month, so maybe once every couple of months. Anyway, you can do that depending on the instructions on your fertilizer, on your package. I use a very balanced NPK of 10-10-10, which I alternate with another NPK which is a bit richer in nitrogen, which promotes the healthy growing of the foliage. During winter, it's not necessary to fertilize your plant, but if you see it growing, if you see it active, you could do it with a more diluted solution and a bit less often, maybe once every 2 months or something. Also, if you just received or if you just bought your plant, I would not fertilize it at least 1 month because the substrate could very much be fertilized. It is fertilized 100%. So don't bother it for at least 1 month and then maybe try to fertilize it little by little, like with little amounts. Let's move on to substrate. Well, for my plant, I have a mix based on perlite, some orchid barks, regular potting soil, and a bit of cocoa fiber. I like to give my plants a very lightweight mix that will drain the water very fast and that will help the roots breathe as well. I've dealt with root rot before on this plant when I was a beginner, but in time I learned that you really need to help the water drain fast because if your roots stay for a longer period of time in water, they will slowly rot, which causes root rot. So if you just have regular potting soil at your disposal, consider adding at least perlite. I've been getting some comments on perlite. It could float and it looks a bit odd and it's a bit annoying to water your plant, but this is a very affordable option, and maybe if you don't have other options in your area, perlite is great for the drainage. What about plastic versus terracotta? And mine is in plastic. You could definitely grow this plant in plastic and in terracotta as well, especially since this plant doesn't like to be overwatered. So it's really up to you. You can use both. If you choose terracotta, be a bit careful because you need to water your plant a bit more often because terracotta is porous. And if you see in any of my videos, I could definitely put a segment in here in which I say 500 times that terracotta is porous, yeah, and it evaporates water faster. And if you choose plastic, you still have to check the soil before you water your plant. So yeah, this plant is great for both, don't worry. Let's move on to repotting. And for this plant, you can try to do it when you see roots from here. I don't know if you can see. I have some roots in here, but I don't think it's ready for a repot. I usually wait on the very last moment to repot a plant. If you see roots coming out of the drainage holes, you can definitely repot your plant. If it has shitty soil and if it doesn't drain great, or if it's just too soggy or just too dense, you can repot your plant. And if you see that something is wrong with the plant, even though you didn't change the watering schedule or its place, its conditions, and so on, if you see yellowing leaves for no reason, you have to check the roots and maybe do an upgrade or a downgrade, depending on the problem. Sometimes you can feel the nursery pot that is a bit too dense, and maybe in that case, the roots have overgrown too much for the pot. Of course, if you don't have a transparent pot like mine, I can see the roots very well in here. Oh, and fun fact about this Monstera. If you just got your plant from a grower, you could see some rubber band just above the roots. Mine doesn't have it, I cannot show you. Oh yeah, picture. I have pictures. That happens because it gives the plant a fuller look. If you don't have any type of support for this plant, it could eventually become a trailing plant. You can grow it on moss poles or you can leave it be, but just so you know, it could look a bit odd if you just let the nature do its thing. Let's talk about propagation. And you have a lot of options with this plant. The basic, most simple one is by leaf cuttings. You need a node. If you have aerial roots, is great. Let me see if I can show you. I hope you can see it. If not, I will do a b-roll. They will just speed up the process. Also, if you can see an auxiliary bud, that is great. From that bud, new grow will come eventually. Let me show you a picture. Another way to propagate your Monstera is by wet sticks. That could work as well. You need segments, leafless stem cuttings that must have at least one node. Place them in a clean container with some sphagnum moss or cocoa fiber or perlite, whatever you want to use. Spray them with a bit of water, zip bag, and then just wait. I think I have pictures with that as well. If I don't, I'm sorry, but I think I do. Another method is by air layering. This plant is super easy to propagate with leaf cuttings, so I will not go to that trouble, to that extent with air layering. I will use that for more pretentious plants, but you could use air layering in here as well. What else? You can propagate it directly in soil. I do that only in the summer because in winter I don't have any chance to do it. Water is the safest option, and that's kind of it. Okay, let's talk about pests. I had mealybugs on this plant. Actually, that plant was newly bought, so I didn't got the chance to do any treatments on it, and I just saw randomly one day that it has some mealybugs. But I spot a problem in time and I got rid of them. Oh, and by the way, speaking of mealybugs, we just filmed a video about mealybugs. So if you want to know how to get rid of them at home without using any heavy pesticides, be aware of this card link right here. And other than that, I would say this plant is super reliable. Trips could also be a problem at some point, so I would suggest to inspect the plant every time you water it. Maybe spider mites, again, I didn't have problems with them, but you have to be aware that it could happen. Another problem that this plant could have is not a pest problem, it's actually a virus problem. You could encounter the mosaic virus? How the fuck do you spell that in English? I cannot say that, so...
Mosaic virus.
It doesn't make any sense, but yeah, you could encounter that virus on your plant, but that is super rare. I would not worry about that. And if you see some kind of discoloration in your leaf, it is most probably not the mosaic whatever virus. It could be actually a problem with your nutrients. So try fertilizing your plant because that might fix the problem. And last but not least, let's talk about toxicity. And unfortunately, this plant is not pet friendly, so please keep it away from any beautiful pets and curious cats. Other tips and tricks you might want to know. If you use a moss ball for this plant, it will get you bigger leaves. Almost any type of tropical plant likes additional support. And if they have that with some additional light as well, I mean a lot of bright and direct light, you could get great results with your plants. You could get them massive. Speaking of leaves, it's great if you can rotate your plant every time you water it, so the light will get on all your leaves, and in that way you can grow a pretty uniform plant. Also, keep your Monstera dust free. Is great if you can shower it from time to time, especially in the warmer periods of time, or just wipe the leaves, but these leaves are a bit more delicate and I would just shower them just to be sure not to break them. And yeah, other than that, that was it with the video. If you like this plant, we also have a blog post about it, and maybe if you want to search something super quick, you can go through that, and maybe you forgot about fertilizing and you can read it there. If you gained some value from this video, leave a thumbs up or share it with your friends. And until next time, don't forget to take care of yourself and your plants.